Hello, everyone. Welcome, and we appreciate you being here. Heather and I are going to tag team this, and I think because he already introduced us, we don't need to do that again. So we can just go straight into the training. If you want to go to the next slide, Heather. There might be a delay, but I'll just keep going. Okay, yeah, there it is. So we are just like unbelievably excited to have Mayo Clinic in Arizona starting a project search this fall. I think a lot of these people on this team have been on the steering committee, some of them, and we're just thrilled that this will be the third project for Mayo Clinic across the nation. That'll be our first one in Arizona up at the Mayo Clinic in Scottsdale. And this will be the eighth project search in Arizona starting this fall. So we do have 6 other active sites and 2 that are starting in August. Fingers crossed with COVID pandemic. We're watching that closely, but we're still moving forward to continue to start in August. So welcome, and thank you all for being here and helping us to help you understand how best to work with interns around disability. So yeah, go ahead on to the next slide. So just to summarize the objectives, this is what we're hoping that you gain from this short time with us, is to recognize that we do need to be more inclusive with people who have disabilities in employment, barriers, and then also ways that we can help eliminate those, and changing our work culture. We also really appreciate anything that you learned today that you pass on to your colleagues, to your families, to your neighbors. The more information people have on disability is best. And so being educated and informed, and that's what we're hopeful that you guys walk away with today. So we're going to start out with, it's called Mentimeter. We're going to have Heather's going to run this, but what we're going to ask the participants to do is to quickly jump on your internet, if you can just open another screen and go to www.menti.com. And it's at the top of the screen, as you can see. And when you go there, it's very, very simple. It'll tell you to enter this code, 891361, and then you can enter, we would like to know what disability means to you in 3 words. If you have 3 words, and it can be anything, just the first things that come to your mind when you think of the word disability. You can see that somebody has already entered a few words. They should populate as you guys enter them, so we'll give you about a minute or so if you guys can do that. And if you have any questions, just unmute yourselves and let us know. There we go. Mm-hmm. So as you guys can see on the screen while you're still populating answers, you see a lot of similarities: ability, differently abled, capable. The test, I think, was us testing out the site. Support. So we just thought this would be a nice little icebreaker to start out and have people kind of just start thinking about what disability means to you. Heather, did you want to add anything to this?
No, yeah, and just you can also use your phone, because I don't know if everybody has been able to access it. So if you're having a hard time using your computer, just go to your phone and type in mentimeter.com. Because obviously disability means a lot to different people. Everyone has stereotypes or has different experiences with the word disability. So I just wanted to kind of see where everyone's head was at before we started the presentation.
And it's okay. Like we often see positive and negative words here, but that's why we're here, to help people understand a little bit, you know, the other side and the full picture of disability. Great.
Yep. All right.
Awesome.
Did everyone get a chance? I just took a screenshot of it, so we'll go back to the PowerPoint, and I'll keep this up on my computer, so feel free to come back if you want a few moments to think about 3 other words, and you can go back and add them. So I'll keep this open and go back to the PowerPoint.
Great. So we're going to start out today talking just briefly about the Employment First Initiative in Arizona, because it absolutely aligns with everything that we're doing, and not to mention often our funders for Project Search also support Employment First exclusively, and we are very much Voc Rehab, and we're very much trying to expand opportunities, and one of them being a Project Search sites in Arizona. So this is just a slide to show you that for people who don't really understand what's going on in the Employment First Initiative, ultimately it just means that no matter what the disability is or the barriers, that we are always looking at employment as the first option for people who have disabilities. Not to get into all the other things that we pay for in Arizona that are not employment, and people with disabilities doing things in their life that are not leading them to self-sufficiency, independence, or competitive integrated employment. So this is a movement that's been going on for about 4 years. We've been working closely with all of these agencies, and I know there's acronyms on here, but the VR and the DDD, those are our agencies, Voc Rehab and Developmental Disability, the Division of Developmental Disabilities, that support people who have disabilities. And so we've been coming together to look at changing policies and practices, and one of the biggest pieces is our employers. And so we are so grateful for you guys to be on to hear and to really hopefully engage differently with people who have disabilities, and to really look at them at people who are capable and will bring all kinds of things to Mayo Clinic for the space we're in, to help you guys be more productive and more, just in general, more inclusive and diverse. So next slide. I'm going to talk, oh wait, actually I'm going to let Heather go. She's going to spend some time explaining Project Search and roles, and then I'll come back on. So Heather, you're up. Oh, you're on mute. Or
there we go. Thanks, Susan. So
Yeah.
I wanted to apologize at first. I woke up with what I hope, I pray is a sinus infection. So I'm a little congested. So let's talk a little bit about what Project Search is. First of all, we're very, very, very excited to have a Project Search at the Mayo Clinic in Arizona. This is just wonderful for both Project Search and Mayo Clinic and Paradise Valley Unified School System. So what is Project Search? Just a little bit about the history. It started at Cincinnati Children's Hospital in 1997 by Erin Riley and Susie Rakowski. Erin Riley was the head ER nurse there, and she just had a lot of high turnover, and she noticed that they, treated a lot of people with disabilities, but they didn't have a lot of people present in the workforce there. So she reached out to Susie Rakowski, who was a special ed director at a local school system, and then Project Search was born. So currently, there are over 600 sites in the U.S. representing 48 states, and I think they have about 11 countries internationally who have a Project Search program. And the difference between Project Search and other transition programs in high school is that this is a business-driven transition to work training program for young people who have developmental or intellectual disabilities. That means that it's complete immersion into the business. Typically, you'll see the school systems, they'll have the students go to the school, then be transported in a classroom setting on a bus, and then go do volunteer or work experience. But the interns are responsible to getting to the workplace, getting to Mayo Clinic, and then they work the entire day while they're there in an internship. So like I said, the program takes place entirely within the host business. And the students have to be in their final year of high school eligibility. So they can't go back to high school once they graduate from Project Search. They are completely employment ready, as the term it says, but so they go into competitive integrated work. The interns, while they're in the workplace, the goal is to have complete immersion and learn relevant marketable skills that will be transferable to a real life job, a real job where they will make at least minimum wage and work hopefully at least 24 hours a week. So like I said, the focus is competitive, integrated employment. So your role in project search is a critical role for the success of the interns. As a manager or mentor working in the host business site, you'll provide an internship for the intern to gain skills that will make them successful in the real world. And those are both hard and soft skills. They're learning real work experience within a real work culture at Mayo Clinic. Your role is to provide guidance to the intern and help them navigate the workplace culture. We all know workplace culture is a hard thing to get. Sometimes they're all different. So the Mayo Clinic has a very inclusive culture, and we're very excited for you to be able to help them navigate the soft skills, the social settings, everything that involves with being a successful employee at Mayo Clinic. Some of the soft skills that you're probably going to have to help the interns with is learning how to be adaptable and flexible within the workplace. A lot of these interns are going to want to come and just please you, make you happy, and you just have to give them constructive feedback so that they'll learn and they'll grow within their internship. The hard skills that they'll be learning is relevant to your department. So the hard skills will be employability skills. They are learning an employability curriculum to help them with the soft skills and the hard skills, and that'll be moved over into the internship after they leave for the classroom in the morning. So once again, it's very, very critical that you provide constructive feedback. So people only grow when they get feedback. And be kind with your feedback, and you'll have a sheet that you'll be able to grade kind of the intern at where they are in their internship and how their skills are evolving. So project search, the model is that there are 2 skills trainers and 1 instructor on site at the Mayo Clinic. And these are provided by vocational rehabilitation. We'll provide 1 skills trainer. And then the other instructor and skills trainer will be provided by Paradise Valley Unified School System. And right now we have Ty Hurt, who will be our instructor, and the skills trainers are yet to be identified. The skills trainers are there to kind of provide one-on-one training and support for the people, the interns who have disabilities. So skills trainers, they will help the interns learn their jobs. I think it's important to note that you'll probably teach the skills trainer the entire role of the intern, and then the skills trainer will help with the learning curve that will be in effect. So the skills trainers will also help to understand and navigate the informal dynamics of the workplace. And that'll be, they'll help them with the social skills that are needed to be successful in the job. And learning the norms, sharing personal information, using common spaces. And just to note that everyone learns differently, not better, not worse. We all have a different learning style, so just have some patience and grace with the skills trainers and the interns because they will learn. It just might not be the way that you learn. So what do instructors and skills trainers do? They complete a task analysis. So that will look different for each intern. Some interns will learn verbally, some will learn written, so they'll have to read a task analysis. So this will be completely different, but they'll help complete a task analysis. I know that Marcia is in the process of scheduling meetings with each department so that we can come up with tasks and develop a task analysis tool that everyone will be able to use moving forward. You'll be able to teach and model job tasks. So they're going to be the ones teaching the interns and modeling how to do the jobs that you are assigning their interns. They'll help the intern problem solve. If something doesn't work out one way, then they'll find another way to do it. So they'll problem solve the best kind of skills and the best routes to get the intern successfully in the internship. And then once again, a lot of the social dynamics that happen in workplaces, the skills trainer will be there to help with the social dynamics and offer emotional support to each intern. One thing they do not do is they are not there to do the intern's work for them. They do not replace the role of the supervisor. If you're having an issue with the intern, you can have the skills trainer present while you're talking to the intern about what the issue is. But be sure that you actually engage with the intern. They are the ones who are there to do the work, so do not talk to the skills trainer unless the intern is present if there are issues. That's a big part of your role, is to include the intern in all meetings that are about them. So some tips and considerations for working with people with intellectual and developmental disabilities. First of all, I would avoid any kind of stereotypes. I mean, we all probably know a lot of people named John, and each John is a different person. The same thing with disabilities. If you have someone who has autism, they are not going to be like any other person you've met with autism before. So avoid any kind of stereotypes that you have had previously. Hold high expectations. I think low expectations are what is killing a lot of our individuals with developmental disabilities being able to have jobs. Their parents don't think that they can go to work, so they never actually have that expectation that they can go to work. So hold the expectations high, and if they go to the ceiling, build a higher ceiling because it can only go up from there. So also, we'll go into person-first language a little bit later, but person-first language identifies the person first. So Marsha is a person who has a cognitive disability, or Stan is a person who uses a wheelchair. Always put the person first. It's not John. Well, we'll get into it a little bit later. So another important thing is treat anyone who has a disability as you would anyone else. They're a person. They're a human. Treat them with respect. Speak directly to the person. Make eye contact. You know, ask before you help. A lot of people like their independence. They can open the door by themselves. So ask before you open the door for them. Just ask. Avoid stereotypes like I've already said. Each person is going to be different. A person with Down syndrome is going to be different than another person with Down syndrome that you've met before. And always focus on the abilities. Everyone has different gifts, so focus on the abilities. Once again, respect the person's independence and privacy. We all like our privacy and our independence, so just treat them like you would anyone else who has a disability or does not have a disability. And when in doubt, ask. Ask the person how they're feeling, if they feel like they can do the job, if they're having issues. So just ask, like we would anyone else. So communicating with the interns. I would first get to know your intern, and you'll have the skills trainer to kind of help you get to know what their hobbies are, their interests are, what they like to do. Just get to know your intern like you would any other new employee. Have a conversation and talk about what their communication preferences are. Each intern is going to go through an orientation before they start the internship. Through that orientation, the skills trainer and instructors will learn about what their communication preferences are, and then teach the intern how to advocate for themselves with their communication preferences. So they should know, the intern should know the best communication preference for them when they start the internship, and ask them, would they rather have written communication? Would they rather have verbal communication? Would they rather communicate through text? So just kind of ask what the intern would learn best from. Once again, ask rather than assume. Like I said, people who have the same disability could be completely different. The autism spectrum is a huge spectrum. So you could have someone who's very high functioning and someone who's very low functioning. So don't stereotype the person based on their disability. Also, I would try communicating in multiple formats. I was a job coach previously, and I've worked with many people with different communication styles. And if one doesn't work, then do a next one. For example, I had a lady who has autism, and we tried written instructions, a list, a task list. It didn't work. We tried picture instructions. Didn't work. We tried giving verbal instructions. It didn't work. What worked was a storybook telling her the tasks that she needed to do every day. So she had a narrative in her head, and using that story about her job skills and job tasks, that's what helped her be successful on her internship and later in competitive employment. And I can't stress enough. Yes.
Oh, go ahead. Oh, keep going.
No, go
stress
ahead.
enough, and then I'll. I was just going to say, just to give you guys an idea, I just got a video 2 days ago from a school district from a young person who graduated, and he's nonverbal, and his family and others helped him create a video that he showed that he could do the job. So he actually hands-on, there was pictures of him, and somebody else was talking about his likes, and he cannot speak for himself in that manner, and he was hired. And so alternate formats and ways of looking at this, it was just an exciting, and he's definitely an individual with significant disabilities. So yeah, being creative and looking at all ways to communicate and look at new hires.
Exactly. You're going to have the skills trainer who are probably going to come and do a lot of pictures and videos to help with the interns, and that could later on become a video resume for that intern. So you'll have the skills trainers and instructors present whenever you need them. So if there is an issue, I would directly go to the instructor or the skills trainer before you go to your manager or even Marcia, who's going to be your business liaison for Mayo Clinic. So they are going to be your problem solvers, and they're going to help you teach the interns, help them learn, and help them grow. So once again, if you have the person who's working with a skills trainer, always have the intern present when you're teaching them, when you're learning, so that the skills trainer is there to assist and help as needed. And set up regular check-ins, just like you would with any new employee who you're training, who you're hiring. Just check in with the intern, make sure that they're feeling comfortable, that they're feeling like they're able to do their job tasks independently. And also set up an environment that if they feel like they need help, that they can ask for help, because we all know that in our everyday life of working, asking for help is one of the hardest things, but it's one of the most beneficial things in our job. So with the Project Search interns, like we said, they primarily have an intellectual or developmental disability, but once again, every disability is different, and they can have sometimes a lot of the interns will have multiple disabilities. And we're just going to go through a few disability-specific tips. And like I said, every person is different. Every situation is different. So it's going to be a learning curve for you as a manager mentor, and also for the skills trainer, the instructors, and the interns. Everyone's learning. It's a learning environment. So when you're working with interpreters for the deaf of hard of hearing, make sure you have your eye contact actually on the employee and not the person who's doing the interpretation. The person who's doing the interpretation is there for support for the intern. So always talk to the intern or a person who is deaf of hard of hearing. Use short phrases and be sure to be patient and wait for the interpreter to translate. It may take a few seconds. I know a lot of times we're used to go, 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 but just be patient and wait for the interpreter. Some of the interns may have a visual impairment. So you want to use alternative text, big print when you're making job tools, job skills. Be sure to provide context and descriptions that are all around you. Be as descriptive as possible when you're describing the settings, the people. And then also it's really important to let them know when someone is entering or leaving the room, because a lot of times people who have a visual impairment, they don't know what's going on around them. They hear noises, but they're not sure because they can't see. So just be sure to announce to yourself when you're entering or exiting a room. So a lot of the interns will have learning disabilities. One of the best tools for them is to use visual aids, and not an aid that has, use pictures to do a task. Show the correct way to do it through pictures. Use multiple formats if needed. So like I said, written, verbal, storybooks, visual, a video is always a good way to use the multiple formats. So you could have you performing it and the skills trainer recording you on a video, and then they show that to the intern, and the intern knows that's the correct way to do that task. So make sure the instructions are as clear as possible, and keep it as simple and in plain language as you can. So working with interns or employees who have autism, the spectrum is large. They all have very different abilities. So use concrete language. Be very direct when you're talking. Don't don't make a lot of jokes, because a lot of times the people on the autism spectrum, people who have autism, do not understand the jokes that are being made. Be aware that eye contact may be difficult for a lot of people who are on the spectrum. So sometimes they'll look on the side because they have just kind of a little difference. It's not bad, but they're still trying to give you eye contact. And the eye contact may be a while till they get the eye contact. It may take all year, but in the end, just keep trying, keep pushing, and it will happen. And be direct when you're giving your instructions for the day. So very similar to the learning disability and the autism spectrum. When you're working with people who have intellectual disabilities, give short, clear instructions. Don't try to talk down to the person, because you're just going to get a lot of frustration coming out of the interns. So just be patient, and just have patience, and it'll probably work out. And if you have any issues, call the skills trainer and instructor. And ask if the instructions were clear. A lot of people with intellectual disabilities, they're people pleasers. They want you to be happy. They want you to think they're doing the job right. So they'll say yes a lot of times, or they'll just say an answer that you want to hear. I would challenge you to ask questions that do not have yes and no answers, and that make the person use critical thinking skills to make sure that they understand what you are asking of them. For some, picture or videos may be very helpful. Like I said, a universal design, a lot of times, if you do a task analysis and you put pictures on it versus words, that's easier for people who have disabilities and who do not have disabilities. I would communicate directly with the employees and loop the job coaches or skills trainers in as needed. So that is going to create an independence for that intern that will transfer over to employment after this internship is over. Sometimes you'll be working with interns who, the speech it can be very unclear. Like I said, just practice patience. If you don't understand, ask. Don't ever pretend that you understand. I worked with a lady once as a job coach, and her manager and I would always ask, well, what are you doing this weekend? And she'd always say, I'm going to Toccoa. And we didn't know what Toccoa was. But we would ask her again, what's Toccoa? And it turns out her family had a cabin up in a mountain called Toccoa, so she'd always go to Toccoa. But it took us maybe all day to figure out what Toccoa was, but we just kept asking, and we gave her patience, and we, would ask different questions. Is Toccoa in Savannah, or where is Toccoa? And just have the patience. And you're showing respect when you give them time to respond. So it kind of shows that you're not talking down on them because you can't understand what they're saying. Everyone has different communication styles, so be patient. If you want them to write down what they're saying, usually they'll be able to write it down. So just show respect and honor that everyone has different methods of communicating. Sometimes you'll encounter interns who have mobility disorders. So respect them, treat them like any other human. Go up and shake their hand. We know that this is an employability program. Handshakes is one of the most important features when you're going in to interview for someone or when you're meeting someone for the first time. So really practice that handshake. And if you can't help, don't assume that you can't help. Ask before. Always ask. Ask what they need. If they need help with the door, ask. But don't assume that they can't open the door. All right, Susan, would you like to take over?
I forgot I put myself on mute. Sure, I can take over right here. We just wanted to reiterate a few things on person versus language. We talked a little bit about it, or Heather did at the beginning of her portion. I always let people know that this is hard because it's hard to be politically correct, in my opinion, under person versus language, because sometimes you will see different things on different disability sites. It's just the reality. We do try to listen to the people, but there's like websites and some say different things. But in general, Arizona has really tried to adopt person versus language, and this came from self-advocates and people who have disabilities, to say people who have disabilities, not people with disabilities. I know it seems potentially silly, a couple words, but it makes a difference because you define somebody when you say that with. Who has is a little different. I don't want to go into too much detail, but regardless, person first language just means that you are looking at the person first. You're not looking at their disability first. So it's not some of these things. So it's not Susan, Susan uses a wheelchair. It's Susan as a person who uses a wheelchair. Or she's not bound by a wheelchair. Or she's, Susan, again, it's really making sure that you're defining, that you're remembering that we're people first and our disabilities, even though we embrace them as people who have disabilities, and they're, it's not something to be ashamed of. That's not how people with disabilities are defined. That's the secondary, is the disability. So just some examples, just some really short examples of how you can be person first. I did want to add something before we get into the next section because it goes into something different. Everything that Heather just talked about, a lot of what will happen in Project Search with Mayo Clinic is that you will be working with the skills trainer, and Tyhart is on, as well as, she's the instructor / teacher. I'm going to use terms that, at Project Search says instructor and skill trainers, but because we're working with school districts, Tyhart is a teacher, and then it'll, her support staff, her assistants will be the skills trainers. Those are the individuals, as Heather said, you'll work with them. If you need some of the things that Heather talked about, whether it's alternate formats and those kind of things, we don't want you to think that you have to go out and just do that. I mean, eventually, we'd like for people, employers to consider those things as natural support things that you just create. However, we really, in the Project Search model, you can work with those individuals to create some of those things that may be needed. Just communicate and make sure that you're help, like, hey, we're seeing a problem over here with Heather, and she might need some support here, and we're not sure what. And those things should be recognized potentially before it becomes a problem. However, people are not going to be with the interns one-on-one 24 hours a day. So we will rely on you to see if there's some some limitations or things that may need to be put in place to help make sure the person's successful. So going into the next portion, and we're wrapping up here soon. We, I should also mention, we do this training, we do this for multiple hours. We're only giving you guys a very quick view of things. We're working with the City of Tempe currently, and we spend almost 3 hours doing this training. So there's a lot more to what we're sharing today, but just giving you guys a little bit, and we can always come back or send you places to learn more. So going into reasonable accommodations, really important that we kind of just touch base on accommodations and assistive technology, which is the next slide, but starting with accommodations, because often they go hand in hand. It really is simple. It's usually a very small change or modification that allows somebody the playing field to be leveled. So it could be a smart pen, it could be an app that somebody has on their phone that allows them to put their schedule in and send reminders. I mean, accommodations are usually very inexpensive. It doesn't always have to be an HR thing where you have to go through a formal process. A lot of things can just be done between people. As Heather mentioned some things, I mean, if we create a checklist, or Ty created a laminated checklist with pictures, those things are free or low cost, and we're not going to ask Mayo to go out and, purchase, astronomical amounts of things. It always has to be reasonable too. And those are things that are determined usually through an HR process. If it becomes a piece of equipment that is, pricier, most are usually under $500. I have a stand-up, sit-down station. That's an accommodation. I bought mine, but when I was at Department of Ed, it was $300. And so we're not talking about usually astronomical things. But it can change the job and make success where sometimes people will fail or not be successful in their job because they didn't ask for an accommodation, or not that it's your job to recognize, but to potentially consider talking to the instructor or something, or if the instructor comes to you like, hey, this might work for the person in this particular rotation to be a little more successful. Can we think about that? So a lot more to accommodations, but we just put one slide in today. We have a pretty good, great video that Employment First has created on our Employment First website. If you want to go there, you can find that. Arizona folks, you can see people with significant disabilities physically working very successfully that have no use of their limbs, are visually impaired or blind. And so you can really see that accommodations can be the answer to a lot of things. And then that goes into assistive technology, which I say they go sometimes hand in hand because often the accommodation can be a piece of technology, assistive technology that supports people. So some of you on here know what assistive technology means, but just briefly, as it says, there's thousands phones, iPads, those kind of things. Those are considered assistive technology. And we've seen those items have been more productive and more used for assistive technology in these days than anything else. We're trying to move away from these OGCOM devices, if you know what I'm talking about, where people it's a huge piece of equipment, somebody that may be nonverbal or can't express themselves very well, because computers and laptops work just almost better, or iPads. And they range, like we say, from simple to complex. And we know that they reduce barriers. This is a huge piece of success for people in employment. And sometimes a few examples of assistive technology and reasonable accommodations can be, and Heather, help me out if I'm forgetting any, or if you wanted to add anything, but things like somebody may need extra breaks, somebody may need to work in a quiet area, or if there's not that potential in the job, in the internship, the rotation, then they may ask to wear headphones if noise is too much for them. Again, I talked about some apps. Often people will download apps on their phones that help them, remind them to take a break, or remind them that you need to go clock in or clock out now. So it can be really simple things, but can be the break, or if somebody either getting and keeping employment or not. Did you want to add any other examples that might be helpful?
Well, I want to say the generation of interns that are coming in are so technology savvy that this is a huge portion of, that will probably be a huge portion of the internship. And also going into COVID, we're not really sure how the beginning of the year is going to look. So we might be using technology a lot to trying to, remove the barriers of them not being able to be at Mayo. So I think technology is a huge piece of success when it comes to employment, and you'll see that moving forward.
Yeah. So, and again, we also ask people, and you can certainly go to the next slide, but we ask people to not make assumptions. If somebody is on their phone, you might need to check in with the instructor or with the person, like, hey, are you using that? Are you making personal calls and texting, or can we, what's going on here? Because we have seen that in employers or employees where they're on their phones for the wrong reasons. They're not using it for their assistive technology. So it's okay to wonder in a question. Don't assume. You may ask the employee or or the intern, or ask the skills instructor or the teacher if we're, what they're using their phones for. Because ultimately, we really do respect the fact that you're not to be on your phones if that's not allowed or it's not appropriate. And it is something, as Heather said, with the group that we have, the young people, it can be a problem. So just keeping that in mind. I don't know that we'll have those issues here. Because a lot of training goes up front with Ty and Marsha and all those guys. They'll be working closely with the interns and Heather to make sure they're aware of, appropriateness. They do need to be doing the job and doing the rotation, the internship, and not playing around. But again, I don't anticipate we'll have those problems. So we're gonna leave a little time for questions, but we're gonna wrap up with we've got a short video and then a summary slide, and then hopefully we'll have a few minutes for for questions, because we'd love to, answer those if we can. And this is, like I said, it's about a 2-minute video that we feel like kind of sort of summarizes the perspective of how beneficial it is to hire people who have disabilities. So hopefully you guys can all see it and hear it.
I don't know. Try again.
Yeah, and if it does that again, I would just use the link. Oh. Maybe click on the link, but you might want to fast forward a little bit. So again, there's always so much untapped ability that gets that we don't, often use. I mean, or for people who have disabilities and then hiring them, our outcomes. We showed a video and a training recently that back in 1990, when the ADA Act was written, and he quotes in there that 75% of Americans with disabilities are not working, and quite frankly, that's our percentage in Arizona. It's about 78% of people with disabilities are not working. So that has not changed much in 30 years. So we rely so heavily on the education of folks and, as they said, the attitudes and the beliefs that people can work, and just giving people a chance. And if I don't want to ever say that it's just employers, but at my tables in Employment First, you guys come up a lot about, if we don't have employers that are willing to hire people, then everything we're doing is for nothing. So, and not really, but you know what I'm saying, we have to have more open. Clearly, I'm talking to people who are very open to this. Mayo Clinic's been working in Project Search for many years in Minneapolis and other areas, and so we're hoping that you guys will continue or be part of the modeling as an employer who's moving forward with being more inclusive and diverse. So Heather, I'll let you kind of talk to this slide, and then we'll see if we have a few minutes for questions, if there are any.
Yeah. Wrapping up, I just want to say, when you're working with the interns, if you have any questions, just simply ask, just like you would any other employee. Just ask. Go in probably without any expectations, but set your expectations high, if that makes any sense. You don't know what they're going to bring to the table, so have high expectations for that intern. Be patient. Be patient with yourself. Be patient working with skills trainers. Be patient, especially with the interns, and try different ways. If one way doesn't work, just keep trying another new way. Be creative. Once again, don't be afraid to make mistakes. Everyone's learning together. This is new for Mayo Clinic, Arizona. If you have any questions, you have Marcia as a business liaison, so go to her. You'll have my information after this. You'll be able to talk with Ty, who's going to be the instructor on site at all times. There will always be someone on site if you have any questions. So let's go in with good intentions and be respectful to everyone, all of our coworkers, all of our employees, the interns, and I look forward to Project Search Arizona at the Mayo Clinic.
And on the next slide, we're just thanking those that are involved. It's a very collaborative effort to have a Project Search. It's not just the Mayo Clinic or Paradise Valley. Evoke Rehab is funding pieces of this. Our Sonora News Set is administering. So we just really want to make sure that we acknowledge that this is a collaborative partnership, and we're grateful that we're bringing this to Arizona at the Mayo Clinic in Scottsdale. So any questions, and please feel free to ask anything. We're open. I know it can be a charged sort of
There is
topic,
no
but
wrong
we don't.
question.
Yeah, we don't want you guys to feel that way.
Not
you
a
can put them in the. Oh, go ahead.
yeah.
Mike.
This is Guy. Not a question, but thank you very much for your willingness to put this on, and thank you very much for the opportunity to bring Project Search to our campus in Arizona. Very excited about that. Mine's more of just a comment to my colleagues. First, thank you for your willingness to engage in this journey with us, and I can tell you that our experience in Rochester and Eau Claire has been just phenomenal. And the piece that I never get tired of is hearing from my Mayo Clinic colleagues about how this experience has grown them and created more awareness within them about people with disabilities and the barriers that we put in front of them. I was just sharing with my team here that myself has gone through a lot in this journey, but just recently I've come to realize that mental health wasn't a unconscious bias, is a blatant bias that I was carrying inside of myself. And it took my son, who's gone through a journey, and it took him to open my eyes to it. So that's the beautiful thing, along with, obviously the primary focus is these young folks who are coming in, and we're gonna give them great experiences and build them up as future employees, whether they're at Mayo or at another organization. But along with it is the growth journey that we all get to go on in Project Search. So thank you.
Thanks, Guy.
This is Marcia. I want to say thank you also to the team, to Heather and Susan, for bringing this to anyone and everyone that was interested in this. A few were not able to participate because they had an emergency, but as I shared with them, it's being recorded, so we'll be able to share, so they can listen to it and watch it and share with the team. So I want to thank you all again for participating, and those that were able to, and for Heather and Susan and Jeff for offering this to us today.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
This is great.
Yeah. Does anybody have any questions, or was somebody getting ready to say something?
Yeah, this is Brandon. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah. So I was just thinking about what Guy was sharing, and also, I've kind of been a broken record, I think, here at Mayo Clinic, in saying that I think that what Project Search is doing for Mayo Clinic is at least as important as what Project Search is, or what Mayo Clinic is doing for Project Search. I think that exactly what Heather and Susan have been sharing is, as we kind of are able to inject this into our culture and really kind of understand some of the ways we speak and the ways that we think and assumptions we make and challenge those on a regular basis, I think we just become a better organization. And I just really am excited for the opportunity to see the interns here on our campus. And I think this is just wonderful. So I appreciate you taking the time to share this education with us. And as Marcia said, we recorded you, so now we'll have it forever for a resource for anybody that might be interested in hearing what you have to say.
Thanks, Brandon. And again, anybody can jump in if you did have any questions, but Ty, we're going to give you an opportunity. I don't know if you wanted to say anything. You're going to be the main face next to Marcia that these folks are going to be working with. But if you don't have anything, I'm putting you on the spot, no worries, because you're not showing your face. So if you're comfortable or not.
No, I'm good. I'm just excited about the opportunity. That's all.
Okay, great. Good to hear your voice.
I'm not being antisocial. They took my camera away to do some telehealth work a few weeks ago, and I haven't been able to get it back.
Oh, no.
Oh, that's hilarious. Well, I don't know if we want to leave for the next 3 minutes, or we can let you guys go early. If there's no questions, again, we're excited, and we're all keeping our fingers crossed. In Arizona, as most people probably know, or maybe you guys don't know, we start school on August 5th. That is right around the corner. There's still so much up in the air, not just within our state and going back to school, but Project Search so specifically because you guys are in hospitals. You're a hospital, and there's a lot of Project Searches at hospitals. As we know, that's been a major health concern. We've had to pull interns this year early out of the sites based on, recommendations or we were told to. So we're definitely moving forward. Even if it didn't start right away, we still anticipate we will start this year. Obviously, it's everybody. We're taking things day by day. I don't know if anybody else, Ty, actually, I don't know if you've heard anything, or you guys, is Paradise Valley still, the plan is to reopen on August 5th at the moment?
Plan is to move full steam ahead with the project, but like you said, anything can change, and we're standing by day to day for updates from superintendent.
Okay, perfect.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we hope to see everyone in August, or you guys will mostly see, like I said, Ty's face and Marcia and Heather to some extent. I'm sort of behind the scenes, so. If there's nothing else anyone wants to say, Heather, I don't know, we're just grateful.
Yeah, no, feel free. If you don't feel comfortable asking a question in the chat or on this webinar, feel free to reach out to us. You have our information. We'll be more than happy to answer any questions or concerns that you have regarding starting the Project Search at the Mayo Clinic, Arizona.
Thank you.
Great, thank you.
Thank you. Take good care, everyone.